On Friday, October 13th, 2017, Jamil Penn received a video call that immediately told him something was wrong. The call came from the mother of his children. Instead of speaking, she slowly moved her phone across the apartment they once shared. What Jamil saw would later become a central piece of evidence in one of Georgia's most disturbing criminal investigations. By the time emergency responders arrived, Jamil's two youngest sons had been pronounced dead. Investigators would soon determine that their deaths were not accidental, and the case would raise difficult questions about responsibility, warning signs, and how a family reached this breaking point. Welcome to Cold Read Crimes. Today, we are examining 10 maternal criminal cases from Georgia's history, spanning from the early 2000s to the present day. These cases are presented for educational and documentary purposes, with a focus on investigation, accountability, and the justice system's response. Before we begin, let us know where you're watching from today, what time it is there, and what the weather looks like outside your window. It's always powerful to see how far this community reaches. If you believe these stories deserve to be told with care and accuracy, consider subscribing and turning on notifications. Your support helps keep these investigations accessible and responsibly documented. The cases you're about to hear are not presented to sensationalize tragedy. Each one reflects a breakdown in judgment, support systems, or accountability that ended with irreversible consequences. We begin with the case that first drew national attention to this pattern. Case 1. Lamora Williams. On the morning of October 13th, 2017, Atlanta police were dispatched to an apartment in the Oakland City area following reports of an emergency involving two young children. The residence was occupied by Lamora Williams, the children's mother. In the hours leading up to law enforcement's arrival, Williams had been in contact with family members, including the children's father, Jamil Penn. During one of those communications, Penn was shown the interior of the apartment through a video call, prompting him to immediately contact emergency services. By the time first responders arrived, both children were pronounced dead. At the outset, Williams provided explanations, suggesting a medical emergency. However, investigators noted inconsistencies almost immediately. The timeline she described did not align with phone records, digital activity, or statements from those she had communicated with earlier that night. As detectives began reconstructing the sequence of events, they focused on digital evidence, including call logs, online searches, and messages sent before and after the emergency was reported. That evidence suggested forethought rather than a sudden or unavoidable crisis. Medical examiners later determined that the children's deaths were not the result of natural causes or an accident. Their findings indicated that the events leading up to their deaths occurred over a period of time, not all at once. Investigators also learned that Williams had been experiencing financial hardship and personal instability in the months prior. While those factors were considered during the investigation, authorities emphasized that they did not account for the decisions that were ultimately made. Williams was arrested and charged with multiple counts, including murder and cruelty to children. The case proceeded through several years of legal motions, evaluations, and court hearings, including assessments related to her mental health. In 2023, a jury found Lamora Williams guilty on all major counts. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The case sent shockwaves through the Atlanta community and reignited conversations about early intervention, accountability, and the warning signs that often precede family tragedies. While Atlanta grappled with the aftermath, investigators along Georgia's coast were about to face a mystery that would test both patience and procedure. Case 2. Leilani Simon. In late September 2022, authorities in Chatham County, Georgia, received a report concerning a missing child from a residence near Savannah. The report was made by the child's mother, Leilani Simon. She told law enforcement that her young son was last seen at home during the overnight hours and that she believed he had left the residence while she was asleep. Given the child's age, the report triggered an immediate response. Local law enforcement, coordinated with state and federal agencies to begin search operations. Officers canvassed nearby neighborhoods, reviewed available surveillance footage, and issued public alerts seeking information. Community members joined the effort, distributing flyers and assisting with organized searches. For several days, the case was treated as a missing child investigation, with authorities urging the public to remain vigilant. As detectives conducted follow-up interviews, they began identifying discrepancies in Simon's statements. Details regarding timelines, locations, and communications did not consistently align with digital records or witness observations. Attention then shifted toward locations connected to the family's recent movements. Investigators emphasized that this shift was driven by evidence, not speculation. Over time, authorities concluded that the child's disappearance was not the result of an accident or an unsupervised departure from the home. The investigation formally transitioned from a missing person case to a criminal inquiry. Leilani Simon was taken into custody and charged in connection with her son's death. Prosecutors later presented evidence outlining a pattern of misleading statements and actions that delayed emergency intervention. In 2024, following a jury trial, Simon was convicted on multiple counts, including murder and false reporting. She was sentenced to life in prison. The case prompted renewed discussion across Georgia about the importance of early reporting, investigative transparency, and the critical role digital evidence plays in modern criminal investigations. Case 3. Devon Moon. In early July 2018, paramedics were called to an apartment on Paxton Lane in Lilburn, Georgia. The call came from a mother, Devon Moon, who reported that her young daughter appeared unresponsive. When officers arrived, they observed a situation that required immediate attention. Devon Moon's home showed signs of a typical household, with a furnished bedroom and organized living spaces. However, one room appeared largely unused, with minimal furnishings. Investigators began reviewing the child's medical records, developmental history, and family interactions. The medical examiner determined that the young girl had suffered severe neglect over time. Her weight and overall health did not align with typical growth expectations for her age. Authorities also discovered that the child had limited access to essential care in the months leading up to the report. Interviews with family members revealed concerns about the child's well-being while in Devon Moon's care. Her grandmother and aunt had previously expressed worry to child welfare authorities and had attempted to provide oversight. Multiple reports and calls to the Division of Family and Children's Services documented these concerns, but intervention had been limited. The investigation also examined Devon Moon's daily schedule, including her work outside the home. Detectives focused on the household routines and responsibilities, assessing how caregiving duties were managed. Evidence suggested that the child's needs were not being consistently met. In court, the prosecution presented evidence of prolonged neglect, emphasizing the patterns of inadequate supervision and failure to provide essential care. The defense highlighted Devon Moon's claims of medical concerns and challenges with her work schedule, but the court concluded that sufficient care was not provided. In July 2018, Devon Moon was convicted of child cruelty and related charges. She received a custodial sentence aimed at accountability, while also ensuring the safety of other children in her care. Before we continue to the next case, we want to take a moment to thank you for watching. If you found this investigation informative, consider liking this video and subscribing to Cold Read Crimes. Turning on the notification bell will ensure you never miss our weekly updates on true crime stories and justice investigations. Sharing this video with friends and family also helps raise awareness about the importance of child safety and responsible reporting. Case 4. Isabel Martinez. On the morning of July 6, 2017, just before 5 a.m., a call came into the Gwinnett County Emergency Dispatch Center. The caller was 33-year-old Isabel Martinez. Responders noted her voice was steady, a detail that would later be significant during the investigation. Officers arrived at a mobile home on Emery Lane and found the residence in disarray. Within the household, multiple family members were injured, and one child had survived the initial events. Emergency services quickly moved to ensure the safety of those involved, and one child was transported to the Children's Hospital of Atlanta for immediate care. Investigators began a thorough review of the circumstances. Interviews with the surviving child and other witnesses revealed a complex family dynamic and indicated that mental health issues played a significant role in the events leading up to the morning of July 6th. Isabel Martinez described experiencing severe psychological distress in the days before the incident. She reported feeling overwhelmed and having unusual perceptions that affected her decision-making. During the investigation, authorities also reviewed statements regarding Isabel's claims of outside interference, which were ultimately determined to be unfounded. Psychological experts were brought in to assess her mental state, providing insight into the extreme stress and psychiatric challenges she faced. The legal proceedings reflected the complexity of the case. In April 2019, Isabel Martinez entered a plea of guilty but mentally ill to charges connected with the incident. The court's decision acknowledged her psychiatric struggles while ensuring accountability and public safety. She was sentenced to life in prison, guaranteeing she would not pose a threat to the community. This case highlights the importance of mental health awareness, early intervention, and the role of child welfare systems in preventing family tragedies. Communities are reminded that recognizing early warning signs and seeking professional help can make a significant difference. Case 5. Trinity, Madison Pogue. In early January 2024, Trinity Madison Pogue was a promising young woman. At 18, she was an honors nursing student at Georgia Southwestern State University, the reigning Miss Donaldsonville, and actively involved in leadership programs that suggested a bright future. On Sunday, January 14th, Trinity was in her college dorm in Americus with her boyfriend, Julian Williams, and his 18-month-old son, Romeo Angelis. Julian left the dorm briefly to pick up food, leaving the toddler in Trinity's care. When Julian returned, he discovered that Romeo was unresponsive. Emergency services were contacted immediately, and the child was transported to Phoebe Sumter Hospital, where staff confirmed his passing. 5 days later, Trinity Pogue was arrested in connection with the incident. Investigators relied heavily on digital evidence, including messages and communications recovered from Trinity's devices, as well as interviews with those who knew her. The evidence suggested ongoing tension regarding the responsibilities of childcare and the adjustment to a blended family dynamic. Messages obtained by detectives indicated frustration and resentment toward the toddler. During the investigation, authorities reconstructed the timeline of events to determine how the incident occurred while the child was under Trinity's supervision. Forensic experts provided analysis regarding the timing and sequence of the emergency, allowing investigators to identify key actions and omissions. At trial, prosecutors argued that Trinity's decisions and actions demonstrated a failure to provide the care and supervision required of someone responsible for a young child. Her defense emphasized that the evidence did not conclusively prove intent, but the jury was persuaded by the combination of digital evidence, witness accounts, and the reconstructed timeline. In December 2025, the jury found Trinity Pogue guilty of felony murder and first-degree cruelty to children. She was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. The case underscored the challenges and responsibilities associated with caregiving, especially for young adults navigating complex family situations. Case 6. Evelyn Odum. Our sixth case takes us to Ware County, near the Okefenokee Swamp, where a long-hidden mystery would remain unsolved for nearly 4 decades. In December 1988, a person walking through a wooded area near Waycross came across an abandoned television console. At first glance, it appeared like discarded electronics, but investigators would later find it held a much deeper significance. When authorities examined the console, they discovered a gym bag inside. The contents of the bag remained unknown at the time, and the case quickly became one of Georgia's most puzzling unsolved mysteries. The child discovered in the bag was referred to as Baby Jane Doe. The Waycross community, deeply moved by the story, pooled resources to provide a respectful memorial for the young girl, whose identity remained unknown. For decades, the case stayed unresolved. Investigators preserved evidence, anticipating that future technological advances could provide answers. That breakthrough finally came in 2023, when forensic genealogy and advanced DNA testing allowed the Georgia Bureau of Investigation to identify the child as Kenyatta Kiki Odum, a 5-year-old from Albany, Georgia. The investigation traced the circumstances surrounding Kenyatta's disappearance back to her mother, Evelyn Odum, also known as Zemeka Luciana. Legal proceedings focused on the actions taken after the child went missing and the choices that prevented timely assistance from being sought. Witness accounts, historical records, and forensic evidence were combined to reconstruct the events leading to the child's death. In August 2025, after careful deliberation, a jury found Evelyn Odum guilty of felony murder and cruelty to children. She received a life sentence, ensuring accountability for her actions. The case serves as a reminder of the critical role forensic science plays in solving long-standing cases and highlights the importance of vigilance, community involvement, and timely reporting in protecting vulnerable children. Case 7. Danielle Hart. On Sunday afternoon, August 24, 2014, the River Ridge apartments were quiet, with neighbors going about their weekend routines. Around 1:30, a frantic call reached emergency services. A child in her care was unresponsive. Neighbors rushed to the apartment and found 4-year-old Jamila Hart in distress. Paramedics arrived quickly, but the child was pronounced dead. The shocking event triggered a full investigation into the household environment and caregiving practices. Authorities uncovered a troubling pattern. The home had a history of strict, punitive discipline and inconsistent supervision. Interviews with neighbors, relatives, and friends revealed repeated incidents where minor misbehavior resulted in extreme punishment. Digital evidence, including text messages between adults in the home, illustrated ongoing conflicts over childcare responsibilities. Law enforcement and forensic experts pieced together the timeline. While the specific injuries are not detailed here, investigators concluded the household conditions had placed the children at serious risk over time. The evidence suggested sustained neglect and a failure to seek help, even when warning signs were clear. During the trial, prosecutors emphasized the persistent patterns of unsafe practices and the repeated opportunities to prevent harm that had been ignored. The defense argued the child's death could have been accidental, but the jury was persuaded by the combination of witness testimony, household history, and documented evidence of the unsafe environment. In June 2025, the Supreme Court of Georgia upheld Danielle Hart's conviction for malice murder. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Case 8. Alandre Hobbs. The investigation into this case began with an anonymous call to 911. The caller reported a concern about a child living alone in an apartment unit. A neighbor later came forward, explaining that the front door to the apartment had been left open for an extended period. When he checked inside, he noticed the living space appeared abandoned, with furniture in place but items scattered across counters, suggesting the occupants had left in a hurry. Police officers arrived promptly and began a thorough assessment of the unit. During the search, they found a young girl who had been left in a closed-off area of the home. Forensic specialists were called in to confirm the child's identity and age. She was identified as 7-year-old Olivia Jordan, a child who lived with autism and experienced health challenges that made her dependent on consistent care for her daily needs, including food, water, and medication. Investigators reconstructed the timeline of events using digital records, witness statements, and physical evidence from the apartment. It appeared that Alandre Hobbs, the child's mother, had moved out of the unit earlier in the year, leaving Olivia behind. Law enforcement interviews with Alandre, conducted after her location and arrest, confirmed that she had abandoned the child due to feeling overwhelmed by her responsibilities. Family members, including Alandre's mother and aunt, expressed shock and disbelief. They shared that they had attempted to check on Olivia multiple times over several months, but had been misled by Alandre, who claimed the child was staying with relatives. The community and extended family were deeply affected by the discovery and the prolonged period during which the child's welfare had been neglected. The legal proceedings focused on accountability and the failure to provide essential care. In April 2025, Alandre Hobbs entered a guilty plea to charges including malice, murder, and cruelty to children. The district attorney emphasized that Olivia's dependence on a caregiver made the responsibility to protect her paramount. The court sentenced Alandre to life in prison without the possibility of parole, ensuring that justice was served and that she could no longer pose a risk to other children. This case serves as a sobering reminder of the responsibilities that come with caregiving, particularly for children with special needs. Authorities and child welfare advocates use cases like this to educate communities about the importance of timely intervention, communication with social services, and awareness of early warning signs. Case 9. Tiffany Moss. The investigation into Imani Moss began in the early hours of November 2, 2013, when Gwinnett County Police received a call from her father, Iman Moss. He reported a concern about his daughter, claiming she had been exposed to an accident at home. Responding officers arrived at the family's residence and began a careful assessment of the situation. Upon entering the apartment, authorities noticed signs that the household had been left in disorder. The investigation revealed that Imani, a 10-year-old girl with medical and developmental needs, had been living in conditions that prevented her from receiving consistent care and attention. She was highly dependent on her caregivers for basic needs, including nutrition, hydration, and supervision. Detectives reviewed school records, family reports, and previous interactions with child welfare authorities. In March 2010, Imani had reported concerns to a school nurse about her safety at home, which led to the stepmother, Tiffany Moss, receiving probation for prior neglect. Despite the intervention, oversight gaps left Imani vulnerable in the following years. Investigators reconstructed the child's daily life and found that she was frequently isolated from family activities and did not receive the care provided to her siblings. Interviews with neighbors, teachers, and community members provided insight into patterns of neglect and inconsistent supervision. Digital evidence, communications, and witness accounts helped establish a timeline of events, showing how Imani's needs had been unmet over time. The legal proceedings emphasized the responsibilities of caregivers and the failures to protect a dependent child. Tiffany Moss represented herself during trial proceedings, and the jury carefully reviewed evidence, witness testimony, and procedural documentation. In April 2019, she was found guilty on multiple counts, including malice, murder, and concealment of death. The court issued a sentence consistent with state law, ensuring accountability and the protection of other children in the community. Imani Moss's case sparked legislative reforms in Georgia's child welfare system, highlighting the importance of early reporting, vigilant oversight, and the role of school and community personnel in safeguarding vulnerable children. Authorities and child advocacy groups continue to use her story to educate families and professionals about recognizing warning signs and acting before tragedies occur. Case 10. Becky Sears. On the morning of March 25, 2009, a handyman arrived at a suburban home on Hot Springs Drive. Signs of forced entry immediately caught his attention, and he alerted authorities. What initially appeared to be a burglary soon unfolded into a shocking investigation involving two tightly connected families. The victims, Kay Parsons and her family, were longtime friends of their neighbors, Becky Sears and her household. Both homes had been broken into around the same time, leaving investigators to question whether the incidents were random or part of a coordinated plan. As detectives examined the scene, inconsistencies in Becky Sears' story began to surface. She claimed to have been attacked near her workplace, but forensic evidence and interviews suggested this was staged to divert attention. Further investigation revealed a troubling dynamic within the Sears household. Becky had cultivated a controlling relationship with her 19-year-old son, Christopher Bowers, using gifts, money, and personal attention to ensure his loyalty. Prosecutors later uncovered that Becky had been engaged in an affair with Kay Parsons' husband, which provided a clear motive for her actions. Evidence showed she had manipulated her son into committing violence, instructing him to stage events to mislead investigators. During the legal proceedings, both Becky and Christopher were charged and faced severe consequences. The prosecution presented a case of deliberate planning, manipulation, and obstruction of justice, highlighting the extent of Becky's control and the dangerous influence she exerted over her son. In 2012, both pleaded guilty. The court sentenced them to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The case stands as a cautionary tale of coercive parenting, manipulation, and the devastating consequences of grooming a child to serve a parent's selfish goals. These 10 cases remind us that the role of a caregiver carries immense responsibility. From early warning signs to intervention, every choice matters. If you found this series compelling, hit the like button, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Which case shocked you the most? Where are you watching from tonight? And how is your community staying vigilant? Stay tuned to Cold Read Crimes. We'll continue uncovering the stories that reveal the complex and often hidden sides of human behavior.